don't reach out to the community.
Yeah.
Well, good evening. I will call to order the special meeting of the Federal Way City Council for Wednesday, November 5th, 2025. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, everybody. Before I say anything else, Councilmember Tran will be absent today, but he had something going on with his family, an illness in his family. He is excused. I'll say this again for the regular city council meeting, but for the special meeting right now, he is excused. With that, I will turn it over. We're going to have a brief city briefing with regard to city center access and council update. Desiree Winkler will get us started. She is the Deputy Public Works Director for those watching at home.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'll give a brief introduction, and then I'm going to turn it over to one of my staff members. So it's been about a year. Is this the new forward thing? It's been about a year, I think, since we've given you an update, but a lot of work has been going on and continues to progress on our City Center Access project. So in order to make sure we're all on the same page, we'll start out with a project overview. We'll talk about recent project activities, discuss the coordination that is ongoing with Sound Transit and their projects, and then also additional on the WashDOT coordination. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Rick Perez, City Traffic Engineer.
Thank you and good evening. So, we're just going to talk a little bit about starting off with the background. So, we actually recognize the need to address access to and from and within City Center back around 2002. And we got a formal project put together for an access study in 2006. That resulted in the selection of two potential alternatives that involved modifying access on I-5 at 312th or 324th. In 2009, the council chose to shelve the project rather than select a preferred alternative. And this project was reinitiated back in 2017. So we redid the traffic analysis. We conducted extensive public outreach, particularly focused on adjacent neighborhoods and businesses, and had a preliminary review of the environmental impacts. And we got down into 2019 to having the City Council select a preferred alternative, which we will describe. So overview of the where we've been and where we're heading, and a couple of key points. November of 2022, anytime you're modifying access on an interstate highway, Federal Highway Administration requires an access revision report that can conclude that they're safe, that the interchange would function safely and with adequate operations and engineering acceptability. That was a major milestone for us. We then went on to continue that work and received Phase 1 funding of design and right-of-way in March of 2023. That was a $50 million allocation through our lobbying efforts, and proceeded into the environmental process. And we are in that right now. But the other major milestone was in 2025. The environmental document was approved by Federal Highway Administration and WashDOT in September under the National Environmental Policy Act. That's NEPA. We're continuing into final design and right-of-way acquisition for phase one of the work, and I'll describe that a little bit more. We're also looking at how to coordinate this with Sound Transit, their extension of the light rail guideway down to the operations and maintenance facility down on 336th Street. And then they will have to reconstruct where the curve at 324th and 23rd Avenue South, which is proposed to be a roundabout. And then after that, we can move into construction, depending on whether we can get construction funding, but possibly as soon as 2028. So this attempts to outline all the different phases. This is too big a project to be able to fund all at once. So phase one consists of constructing the ramps to and from I-5 southbound to connect to South 324th Street, and then would construct 324th between those ramps and 23rd Avenue South. Is there a pointer here? Oops. I guess not. Okay. Anyway, maybe I can do it here. So this is the southbound ramps. Then we'd be constructing 324th to connect to 23rd Avenue South, continuing to widen 324th existing to 5 lanes. And then at the intersection of Highway 99, we'd be constructing a second left turn lane for northbound and southbound 99 to accommodate the additional volume that would be using 324th. That's phase one, and that's what we're working on design. Phase two would eventually extend 324th across I-5 to Weyerhaeuser Way. And then phase 3A would reconstruct the bridge over I-5 on 320th and then construct HOV lanes eastward to Military Road. So the outside lanes of 320th, there'd be 2 general purpose lanes and HOV lanes in each direction from Highway 99 to Military Road on 320th. Phase 3B would then come back and build the northbound ramps to and from I-5 at 324th and modify the interchange at 320th to bring up to current standards. Let's see. So this is just a brief overview of what phase one consists of. Some of the individual parcels we're showing here are surface water detention facilities in addition to the roadway work. So as I mentioned, the environmental documentation, we have received washed out approval under the National Environmental Policy Act. So we are now in the process of preparing a application for the State Environmental Policy Act, which typically will just adopt the national document. There's some additional analysis to meet specific requirements in state requirements. And then a third element is the hydraulic project approval, which is, let's see, that was, what agency submits those? I forget. Anyway, it's another environmental process that we have to do for surface water. Is it fisheries? Yeah, Fish and Wildlife, that's it. So one of the more challenging aspects of this is trying to make this work with a lot of stuff in the way. So Sound Transit, when they extend the guideway, which is outlined in red here, has to go over where we're going to build 324th, which means they have to raise the BPA power lines to get under it. And so where BPA originally proposed to place the towers for this relocated and raised lines was too close to the Tacoma water line that runs through the same easement. So that required them then to place this particular tower, this would be a new tower, right in the middle of where 23rd Avenue South is. So working with BPA and Sound Transit, we developed an alignment that would realign 23rd and 324th. So the good news with this is that basically Sound Transit's going to build this roundabout for us. They will also do some rough grading to take care of this culvert that would feed into the High Lobos. The downside of that is that between the tower construction and Sound Transit realigning the roadway, 23rd and 324th will be closed for roughly a year and a half. So we have some mitigation proposed for that with the traffic signal at Highway 99 and 320th. It's not going to solve it, but it'll make it better. Come on. Why aren't you advancing? There we go. So there's some right-of-way acquisition involved in this, obviously. So the green outlines what the city would be acquiring. The orange it would be easements that would be mostly for surface water facilities. And the existing 320th Park and Ride, portions of that will be basically, looks like, given to us by the state, as long as it's used for right-of-way purposes, which this would qualify for. And then the other property that is not already publicly owned would be acquired by Sound Transit. One of the other interesting things is we have some fish barriers to deal with. For this creek right now, coming off the bog on the east side of the freeway, there's an existing culvert, and at this point here is another fish barrier, and then it goes into another culvert, and then down comes out into Belmore. So the original design we had, and WashDOT was originally supposed to do this one, and they decided to defer it. But this would be a new culvert underneath I-5, and then exposing as much as possible the surface drainage to provide adequate habitat for migrating salmon. Then go through another culvert underneath the extension of 324th, which would be rough graded by Sound Transit to this point. Little bit of open drainage here, and then underneath another culvert to this roadway within Belmore, and then outfall here. Another alternative that would be less expensive and easier to construct would be to have a shorter culvert under I-5, and rather than having walls in a 30-foot deep cut here, to basically grade it so that it's sloped back. It does take up more room, but it would be better environmentally. And let's see, what else? So one of the other aspects of this is what to do with what would be unused parts of the park and ride, the existing park and ride. One potential idea, if it's used for right-of-way purposes, WashDOT's willing to give it to us. Any other portion that we would want to use for any purpose, potentially we'd have to pay them for it. But that might be an opportunity for some other type of open space to be used in the city center. And so the only downside with that is if we're using that, it becomes a type of property that, once it becomes park, it has to stay park. So there will need to be some discussions in the future about, do we want to use that property, and if so, what for? Oops. So, as I mentioned, one of the options here would be the not having a bunch of walls, but rather just sloped property. It'd be a little bit more open and probably more pleasant to look at from aesthetic purpose. And so this is what the schedule looks like. So one of the aspects that we're working on right now, so we had the access revision report approved. That is for the entire project, all phases. But now we have to update that to be specific for phase one. And so that work will continue through most of 2026. And obviously, we have to coordinate that with Washington State DOT. We'll be in preliminary design through the first quarter of '26. We will, there's also a channelization plan approval that WashDOT needs to approve for any changes in how the roadway functions, both I-5 and Highway 99. Value engineering, then right-of-way acquisition would start after that first quarter and into and through 2027. One of the interesting things with the environmental process is we started off assuming a higher level of analysis would be required, and that downgraded last year. And so it required less, but it also required us to pivot on what we had to include in that environmental documentation. But that part is now done. And so SEPA is the remaining portion that we need to work on environmental. And coordination with Sound Transit and BPA is ongoing. And the proposed closure would start in early 2027 for 23rd and 324th. And as soon as BPA's work is done, then Sound Transit would start in mid-2027 and take about a year for that. So that concludes the presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember McDaniel?
Yeah, going back to the closing down, you said it's going to be about a year and a half.
Yes.
Is it how much of that road are we looking at shutting down, since there's a lot? I mean, how do you get to Belmont if you shut that down?
Right, so Belmore would still have access. We would
Okay.
preserve that, but basically it'll be down to one lane each direction from Belmore's driveway to the west.
Gotcha.
And then we'll also be providing temporary pedestrian access across that so that they can go to the mall.
And then what about the up towards, close to the Pacific Highway, where we have those buildings and those rest?
Those will still have full access.
Okay, so at what point does it go down to that one strip to get down there?
That driveway that's about halfway between Belmore and 17th Avenue?
Is the one for the mall?
Yes.
Okay, that one? Gotcha.
Yeah, that's where it'll narrow down.
Okay,
And then on the north side at 322nd. So
Okay.
the
And then-
south leg of the intersection would be closed.
gotcha. And then my second question is, I believe those are for salmon, then, that design you were showing us with either slope to cement walls and
Yes.
stuff. Does that have water in it consistently, or is that only when we have enough, I guess, water to fill that up? Is that going to be consistently filled, or is it only going to be like seasonal?
I believe that's a seasonal drainage.
So, okay, those are my other questions. Thank you.
Council President Kuchma?
Rick, so on the dip, are we still going to do the dip, or what about that?
That's up to the council, really. We've done the analysis. It's not cheap, and nothing has been budgeted for it at this point.
Council President, we're looking at it, we're kind of, there are different, I've had community development and public works, and Brian, we've talked about this. I'm trying to get it ready for a council discussion, but it's not quite ready.
So I would assume we'd want to do it at the same time as this if we were going to do it.
Well, I think we need to figure out we can have more of a presentation regarding the DIP. It's about how comprehensive is this? How much of an appetite do we have? What would be the funding for it? I think that we're trying to figure that out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like we want to do it not at the same time, since there'll be considerably more traffic on 324th during this process. And so we'd want to make 324th as clear as possible during that time. So it seems like the dip should either be before or after,
Yeah.
rather than,
Councilmember Honda?
Thank you. So what is the total cost for the entire project, all phases of it?
Last time we updated the estimate, it was about 550 million.
And what is the length of time that, if you got all the money, they would take to build it?
I can't recall off the top of my head, but we can certainly look.
15 years?
Yeah, it would take a while. I mean, every phase is going to be 3 to 5 years.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Devitt?
Yeah, this project, which is very well needed, and we also have the Highway 18 flyways and overpasses, and you just threw out 500 to 600 million among friends. What's the impact on the other project that hasn't been done and we're trying to fund also? Because, I know they're different projects, but you're competing for the same pot of money, right?
Yes, in both cases, our primary funding source would be through the state.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a matter of council direction to provide what the priority needs to be.
So,
Right now, the Triangle project on Highway 18 is not even funded out to 2035.
but
So,
together, are you talking $1 billion? Or 800 million, or where do you think that all
I
lies?
think the remaining phases of the Triangle are about 250, 300, somewhere in there right now.
So, I mean, the only reason I'm asking the question, shouldn't we try to finish one first before we start the other, or do you have two of them half-built, or, I mean, they're both important, but if we're gonna push for something, should we push for one we can get done sooner?
Well, I would offer this up. Right now, at Highway 18, the big challenge is the merge with I-5 southbound from the flyover. And so that's going to be some improvements that will require coordination with actually the Gateway project, the 167 extension. The other one is the northbound off-ramp from I-5 to eastbound 18, which the trucking industry is pushing really hard in the ports to get that constructed. And so that was in the next phase that was proposed for the Triangle project. And that's about, if I recall correctly, an $80 million project. So, I mean, you could bounce back and forth, fix the worst first, and then go do another phase of another project if you had to. Because, yeah, we're not going to get, $750 million all at once.
Okay, thank you.
Council President, you have another comment?
I do, I have two more. So when we raise the power lines, I assume that's on the Bonneville Power, and
Yes.
Sound Transit would pay for that. So do we then lose power to the neighboring businesses for a period of time, or?
No, so that's one of the things that's critical about when they schedule. They're going to do that at a time when power consumption is lowest, and they can reroute to other parts of the network, of the grid.
So it wouldn't be a long period of time then?
No. So the actual construction will take a few months, but the time that they would actually be shutting off the power is only when they're moving the lines to the new towers.
Also, weren't we talking about a trail system at one point?
Yes, that is a part of the project that I should have mentioned. So, we've talked about extending the BPA trail across I-5, and this project would include that. So there'd be a shared use path on 324th. And actually, we've got a separate project that we're going to be starting design on pretty soon to take that from Highway 99 to where the roundabout is, or going to be at 23rd and 324th, and then up the west side of 23rd to connect to the light rail station. So, but then when we construct Phase 2 and get 324th extended across I-5, that will get us over to Weyerhaeuser Way, and then people would be able to go up 32nd Avenue South, and at some future point, we'll extend a BPA trail east from 32nd out to 51st.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see a diagram of that, or, you
Okay.
know, thank you. I just walked all over New York. My feet are still sore. I'm wondering how that would work with people wanting to walk. Thanks.
Okay, council, any other questions for Rick? All right, thank you very much, appreciate it. Okay, having no other business for the special study session, we will be adjourned until our 6:30 regular meeting.